Now it's time to add a road and cabins to the Yellowstone scene. Open a project, go to the Tutorials folder, YNP, and load the cabin project. Save it as Cabin 7 to avoid overwriting the existing project file. In the database editor, you will note we have the lake and stream we've worked with before. There's now a highway vector leading into the development. Cabin clearing, which defines the development. There's a cabin road. We'll loop through, and then the cabins themselves. Let's start with the highway. Go to the Terrain Task Mode, right-click the TerraFactors category, and add a component from the gallery. Two-lane highway is the first component, so double-click to load it. Accept the ecosystem scaling option. Expand the TerraFactors category, and there we have the two-lane highway. In the lower scene at a glance, slide down to the vectors, expand them, and click and drag highway vector up to the two-lane highway. Confirm that you're going to add that highway vector to the two-lane highway. OK. Save the project and render a cabin plan preview. In the land cover task mode, the ecosystems, you will see that in addition to the grassland and pine burn we started with, the highway TerraFactor has added asphalt, gravel, short grass, and tall grass. This is a new housing development, so let's use the shortgrass ecosystem to fill the clearing in the forest. Go to the lower scene at a glance, slide down to the vectors, and copy the cabin clearing vector to the shortgrass ecosystem. Confirm that you're going to add that cabin clearing vector to the shortgrass ecosystem, save the project, and render a cabin plan preview. Let's get a closer look at the end of the road. Change the view to the road end plan, save the project, and render a preview. TerraFactors affect terrain outward from the controlling vector. This includes the ends. This can make for rather unrealistic road terminations, but we can flatten that out with the Revert TerraFactor from the component gallery. Back to the Terrain Task Mode, right-click the TerraFactors, add component from gallery. If we go over here, down to the Revert, double-click to load. All we need to do is attach something to it. That's what we have the dead end vector for here in the lower scene at a glance. Copy that to the Revert TerraFactor. Confirm that you're going to add that dead end vector to the Revert. Save the project. Render another preview. To see this from the road perspective, change the view to the road, save the project, and render another preview. You can go ahead and stop that render once you see the road in the clearing. We don't need to wait for all the trees in the distance to render. If we go to the two-lane highway TerraFactor elevation page, you'll see that it is rendering relative to vector elevation. This is usually the preferred method if you're doing a road. Usually the road is at the elevation you want the road at, which means you want VNS to fill in or cut the terrain depending on what needs to be done. To see how that TerraFactor works, let's edit the cross-section profile. The profile shows us half of the TerraFactor looking down the controlling vector. In this case, the active point, the first one, is at the vector itself. It has a distance 0 and a value of 0. It also has a segment ecosystem, asphalt. Each of these points controls the placement of an ecosystem. It controls that segment to the left. So in this case, everything to the left of this point is going to be asphalt. The second point is 2.74 meters away from the center line. It's a little bit lower, and it still has asphalt rendering. So between that second point and the first point, this will all be asphalt. The third point, about 4.9 meters out, a little lower still, asphalt. So this whole section so far we have is asphalt. That is the end of the road because the next point that's dropping even lower onto the shoulder at about 5.8 meters now has gravel rendering. That means between that fourth point and third point, this will be gravel. The next point, lower still, is short grass. We have a little bit of eco-mixing coming into play here across that point. And the last one, tall grass, this section right here, which has 2 meters of eco-mixing with the surrounding ecosystem. So we have tall grass blending into short grass, gravel, and then asphalt. The approach slope page controls what happens after the edge of the Terra effector up to the total effect radius. In this case, we're going to fill 50%. The cut is rather steep. We'd like a little softer cut, so change that to 50%. Let's go ahead and open another road view in the upper right quad. Save the project. Render a preview. That's good enough for rendering. Escape out of there. You might not notice much of a difference here. In fact, you probably can't because we have such a nice texture here hiding it. This is one of those places where an alternate channel in the diagnostic data comes in handy. We're currently looking at the RGB. Let's go to the slope, and you'll see that before we made our cut change with our 300% cut here, we have some steep slopes here in the cut. You can see a little bit of shading here. After we dropped the cut down to 50%, we softened out that cut. Go ahead and switch back to the RGB channel.